I now have with me Professor David Aworawo, Professor of International Relations and Strategic Studies at the University of Lagos, as well as Jide Ologun, a legal practitioner and national development advocate. Gentlemen, good to have you again this week on the program. Well, we have our two guests. Senator Orji Uzor-Kalu, representing Abia North Senatorial District, and Jide Yonju speaking on NSAS anniversary today, which was on this very day. Senator Orji Kalu addressed a number of issues about the nation, starting with the president and the VP traveling almost all the time, and other issues regarding statements that he made recently in the media. Well, where do I start from? Let me start with you, Mr. Ologun.
Thank you very much. I listened to Senator Orji, and he was trying to say that governance should be the responsibility of all. And I think on that point, while agreeing slightly, I know that Section 5 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended put the implementation of the executive power on the president to ensure that the fortunes of the citizens are enhanced, because he also made some points, for instance, that some producing lines are being shut down for some churches to spring up, and that creating wealth in the nation is a collective effort. Yes, we know that, and that is why we have a government in place. And talking about the National Assembly, where he is, and according to him, this is the second term, and he may still be interested. They are to make laws for the peace, orderliness, and good government in Nigeria. So when you look at the fact that the president is not a bedroom president, he goes out, he sees what people are passing through, then there must be a collective effort on the side of the government to implement policies that will touch the lives of the citizens meaningfully. And I hope that he will take that back, because he was trying to say that Buhari is back to Daura, Goodluck is back to Otuke, and Obasanjo is in Ota. We all know this. And the essence of leadership, as expected, is that between 1960, when we gained political independence from the colonial masters, and now Nigeria should have become an almost developed country and not be talking about poverty as we are right now. And talking to the anniversary of the end SARS, it's quite unfortunate that, again, force is being used. But the police will quickly argue that there's a responsibility to maintain peace, law, and order in the society. But the basic reason for which the protest took place in the first instance, have we addressed it? Do we now have a police that is civil enough to drive the vision of the police, which is creating a safer environment for national development and growth? And the lesson to learn from government is that you may not easily prevent people from protesting if you don't deliberately attend to the conditions that are in this country. So, and I hope that this time around it will be wisely attended to. And there are still other issues. I mean, there were allegations of massacre, but there was a white paper that denied all this. And later, the Lagos State government came up with mass burial, and some were asking, I mean, if you denied massacre at Lekki toll gate, this mass burial, where did the corpses, come from? So we just hope that we come to the point where it should be realized that indeed democracy is the government of the people, by the people, and for the people, and to ensure that the agencies that represent the government are civil in their approach to support national development.
Well, Prof?
Yeah, I would also like to begin with Senator Orji Uzor-Kalu's many interventions and comments on several issues. I would like to take off from where Barrister Ologun stopped, talking about the fact that to build Nigeria should be a collective responsibility. That is right. All Nigerians must come together, must work harder, must do what is right to generate, income and improve the quality of life of Nigerians generally. He also talked about factories becoming churches. I'd like to comment extensively on this. But it's not either or. Either you are religious or you are producing. Both can go together. Man cannot live without bread. Man also cannot live by bread alone. Many of those factories that were, purchased by these churches were just there, comatose. Many of them were abandoned because of government policy. No power, no this, couldn't compete. And so we saw many of them in Ogba here, abandoned. And then the churches came to buy them up. This narrative as if to suggest that if you are religious, you cannot be productive. For you to be productive, you have to be irreligious. It's not correct. So I don't agree with Senator Uzokalu. You should show me who will want to go and, if somebody says, I want to buy Dangote refinery and build church there, that will not work because the refinery is working. It is all those abandoned warehouses, factories that, churches bought over eventually. Even though, yes, some Nigerians could be over-religious, so to speak. I used to ask one lady where I used to buy things. I come on Monday evening, I don't see her. Sometimes during the week, I don't see her. I say, you go to church on Sunday. Why return to church again on Monday? What did you not do on Sunday you are returning to go and do anyway? So some could be over, religious, but we should not make narrative as if you are religious, you cannot be productive. Both can go together. He also talked about so many other issues. He talked about the fact that Nigerians are hungry. I'm happy he recognizes that. He says he's a grassroots person. As a president, as a government taking the right measures, I don't think so. I think many mistakes have been made along the line. Take for instance, talking about the Nigerians not working hard enough. Nigerians work very hard. In Borno the other year, people were going to farm when bandits or terrorists attacked them and decapitated 69. Will you say those ones were not hard working enough? They were going to their farms. When, interestingly, or surprisingly rather, the media aide to the President Buhari at the time said that they didn't take order from permission from the military. That was why what happened. So just to go to farm, military must escort you. So, and of course, the Judge quoted Section 14, which all of us know, that is that the protection of life and property is the primary responsibility of the government. And when government fails to do that, of course, everything turns upside down. He also talked about, President Obasanjo is now in Ota, Babangida is in Mina, yes, we know all of this. But we also know that government policy is critical, is central to how the economy fares. We're all here in 1999 now. We lived through that in 2007. And the economy, we all prospered collectively. I remember at the time, colleagues who had never bought a car in their lives under Obasanjo, they were buying Opel, which was why people were calling Opel Bem Obasanjo at the time. Yes, it was not. So Nigerians have not changed. Government policy is critical. For instance, the other Nigerians he talked about that they should go and work hard, they are working hard. Were they the ones who announced that subsidy is gone on first day? I've always argued that, yes, the subsidy could be less than what government was paying, which means the price will go up. But that removal at once, everybody knows, it sets a domino effect which we have not managed to be able to come out of until now. And several other policies that government has taken. So government needs to be more perceptive, and the National Assembly also needs to be more critical. Many of the debts that we had under Buhari, we don't know when they went to National Assembly. And the ones that went to National Assembly approved. And that was it. And see where we are. Foreign debt alone now is about $45 billion. It was 33 in 1999. And then reduced to about 4.5 in 2005, after those negotiations under the Obasanjo government, where some money was paid and some was written off. So government has a whole lot to do. While we agree that the task of transforming Nigeria and improving the quality of life of the people is a collective. Now, NSAS. Well, it seems that police just can't change. Must they harass, arrest? They could. The protest in August was fairly better managed. Police. When of course there were places where things turned violent, but at least in some places like Lagos, we saw the police marching with the protesters, and nobody was arrested. Even the one of October 1 too, the same thing happened. Why can't they just follow in that same routine? This harassment, this arrest, the people there were not so many. They could easily have given them protection for them to, carry out their protest and then go home quietly, instead of this escalation that they carried out. Again, like the judge said, President Tinubu was a protester. He was also a resistor against oppressors. And of course, the fact that he ran away under Abacha and joined the group that was fighting for the restoration of democracy is, confirms that. We don't expect this kind of thing to be happening under a government of President Bola Tinubu. And I would suggest that the presidency should take a decisive step. Two things. One, if Nigeria is working, everything is smooth, people will have cause to go and start protesting. Two, if and when people want to protest, the police should do its job the way it ought to. All of these things lead to escalation. Of course, thankfully we heard that they have been released, but my take is that there was no need arresting them in the first place.
Okay, well, let's take the next story. Israeli forces on Thursday confirmed the death of Yahya Sinwar, a top Hamas leader and the mastermind behind the deadly October 7 attack on southern Israel. Sinwar was killed during a firefight in Rafah, Gaza on Wednesday, according to a joint statement by the Israel Defense Forces and Shin Bet Security Agency. Sinwar's presence was only discovered after troops examined the scene on Thursday morning. Sinwar was not specifically targeted during the operation, but DNA testing later confirmed his identity. The operation was part of the ongoing military efforts by Israel to eliminate senior Hamas figures hiding in Gaza. Sinwar's death came as Israeli troops progressively closed in on its location over the recent weeks. Well, Sinwar is known as the butcher of Khan Yunis, where he was born in 1962, and is the man who runs the international security operation of the Hamas, that is the Majid, named after the village where he was born. He spent about 19 years in Israeli prisons, during which time he learned to speak Hebrew. But the idea was to understand the psychology. But he's considered Israel's enemy number one. Well, Iran has said that this will only strengthen the spirit of resistance, and that nobody should be mistaken that this will be the end of the struggle. He's considered a martyr, and a symbol of the struggle among his own people. Well, they have not named the replacement, but after a fashion, we'll expect. But would that end the war? Would this deepen the conflict? Professor Aworawo.
Yeah, incidentally, the Israeli forces that killed him didn't specifically target him. They didn't even know he was there. But after the attack, they discovered that he was there and that he had been killed. Yeah, terrorists and the activities. I mean, when agencies take action against terrorists, what more can one say? It's in the right direction. But will the death of Sinwar end the resistance? Of course, the answer is capital no. Which is why we go beyond this, strategic killings, and eliminations in the solutions we proffer to the Middle East crisis. What is established is that many of those involved in attempts to resolve the Middle East crisis either support Israel or they support the Palestinians. And those that support Israel, what they wish for Israel, they don't wish for the Palestinians. Those that support Palestinians, what they wish for Palestinians, they don't wish for Israel. That's where the problem lies. But to my mind, it's one of the simplest conflicts to resolve if there is determination to pursue the cause of peace. First, the Palestinians deserve their state, which is why two-state solution has been on the agenda for a long time. That has to come afoot. That has to be achieved as quickly as possible. Two, Israel deserves assurance that an independent Palestinian state will not be used as a base to threaten our security. What that means is that the international community needs to put in place a structure. It does some blue beret military people who would ensure that a corridor or so is created that will prevent an independent Palestinian state from attacking Israel. If Israel's security is assured and the Palestinian state is created, the rest will be easy to handle. And these things should not be that complicated. But the problem is that you have hardliners in Israel, hardliners also, and terrorists also on the other side. So, to my mind, it's not just the killing of Sinwar that were significant, but not extensively. The focus should be the comprehensive diplomatic engagement that will lead to these two things I've talked about. Guaranteeing, assuring Israel of its security, and then, of course, the creation, the establishment, the efflorescence of a Palestinian state. That ultimately should be the solution.
Mr. Ologun.
You know, I adopt the brilliant submissions of Prof. And beyond that, even Netanyahu himself is on the stage. Some are focusing on him, that he may be going beyond state interest to protect his personal interests in these battles, and that he also may be trying to impress his people. And Israel came out to say that there is a simple rule in Israel that you hurt us, we hurt you. And that is why they are hitting hardly on the Hamas and the Palestine side to say, once and for all, let's drive this battle to a long range. And I also agree that taking out the Hamas leader may not bring an end to it. Even Netanyahu is not even speaking in that direction. If you look at Nigeria, Mohammed Yusuf, that was the arrowhead of Boko Haram, was taken out at a point. In fact, that was when Boko Haram went really violent against the state and the citizens. So there's what we call conflict resolution in public relations. And the international community can help both Hamas, Palestine, and Israel to achieve this. But if you also look at the positions of the supporters, for instance, Iran appears to have a deep hatred for Israel. And Israel is claiming to be like the superpower of the world. So it may go on for a long time. Taking out one of the leaders may only inspire some of the followers to say, okay, we continue this movement. So I will be appealing to the supporters of all the sides in this battle and see how peace can be restored to that region. I mean, it's quite unfortunate when Hamas was hitting Israel unprovoked in October last year, it could have been thought through that what would be the consequences of this attack. And this is a long-range battle that has been going on. And like I said, I hope, though someone already said, for those who have the fear that is this the third world war that is on its way, and some have said no, but we have to ensure there is peace in that region. And we leave that to superpowers who have all the interest, except that the United Nations appears not to be so strong-willed in bringing a resolution here, even when there were attempts to bring the parties to discussion. Israel appears hardened in this situation, and I hope it ends well for Israel. But talking about that strip that they all battle over, I mean, it may remain a long trip than we expect.
Anyway, quickly, let's hope that there will be peace in the Middle East and in the world. Well, it's not that the UN is not strong-willed. It's just about the nature of the UN Security Council and the balance and checks, the veto power that some, interested parties exercise. Plus the fact that the Western world is hypocritical, I think, on the question of the crisis in the Middle East.
The UN Security Council,
Yes.
whose structure is anachronistic, as you
Yes,
speak.
you are
And
very correct.
they failed to carry out reforms to make it effective.
And that is the weak will.
Okay, well, it's not something that the UN Secretary General can personally enforce.
Exactly.
Anyway, let's take another topic. Several Nigerian state governors have begun the implementation of the new minimum wage, providing long-awaited relief to civil servants in their respective states. The move follows the recent agreement between labor unions and the federal government to increase the minimum wage, a measure aimed at alleviating the rising cost of living driven by inflation and fuel subsidy removal. Governors in states such as Lagos, Rivers, and Kaduna have already initiated payments, with others expected to follow suit. While workers have welcomed the development, some state governments are grappling with budgetary constraints, raising concerns over the sustainability of the wage increase in the long term. Labor unions, however, have warned that any delays or non-compliance by states could trigger industrial action. We are aware, for example, that Lagos has announced a package of 85,000 as minimum wage. Rivers too, 85,000. Ondo State, 73,000. Even beyond and above, the national threshold of 70,000. Mr. Ologun, I'll start with you.
Thank you very much. You see, I'll start with Section 16, subsection 2D of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, and what it mandates. It's a reasonable living minimum wage. And it appeared that the 70,000, prescribed and set into law was going to solve the problems of those within that bracket. But interestingly, the economic situation became a threat. And that is why I'm happy that some states are now going beyond the minimum wage, because no law says you cannot go beyond it. And commendably, Ondo State is giving 73,000 naira, Kogi 72, Rivers 85, and Lagos 85. But having said all this, do these, cascade or result into living wage as we are right now? And that is why I will still be suggesting that the macroeconomy should be considered to see how we can make this minimum wage relevant while appreciating the efforts of the governors. And that is why, once again, I'm happy Senator Uzokali has told us that the president knows what is going on out there, because right now, the pump price of PMS, even in NNPC, it's about 989 naira. So let's say approximately 1,000 naira. So that means for you to have 50 liters in your vehicle, that's about 50,000 naira. So we want just to ask that, can all these leaders come together, look at Nigeria where it is, look at how we can really enhance the fortunes of the citizens. But so governors are still considering whether they will be able to pay the 70,000. And the International Labour Organization that was established in 1919 is even calling for a decent wage. And to what extent is the minimum wage in Nigeria able to provide decent living for workers? So we are monitoring.
Professor Aworawo.
Yeah, I want to commend the governors for going above the 70,000, because when the negotiations were on, the governors were the ones who were saying that they couldn't pay. When the federal government was trying to say, oh, okay, we'll pay this much, when they were negotiating, the governors were the ones who were vehemently opposed to higher amounts. So I commend them. But there are two other things I want to comment on. First is how far can that carry people, even if it's 100,000. Before I came to the studio on Sunday, I mentioned it last week, I just bought 40,000. I bought another one on Tuesday, 30,000. The other one on Thursday, 30,000. So from Sunday to Thursday, I had bought fuel 100,000. So if you have paid somebody 85,000, which is perhaps the highest, we commend the governors because they could have said we want to just pay 70 and nobody will hold them. But taken together, it doesn't really go anywhere. Yeah, it doesn't go anywhere. A bag of rice is now, I understand, maybe 110, thereabouts. 110,000, some are even selling 120 in some places. What that means is that minimum wage cannot buy a bag of rice. People will say, but you don't buy rice. If you buy one bag now, you don't have to buy another one next month. But that just gives you an idea that what a whole family earns cannot buy a bag of rice. So it's not a big deal, but we want you to commend them, because there are several other governors who have not been able to manage to put their ass together to even pay the 70,000, as small as it is. So the other thing I want to comment on is, apart from those who were earning 30,000, who now earn 85, how is it graduated for others up till the highest level, maybe level 15, level 16? Because actually, federal government tricked us. In fact, duped us. Yes, because you know what they did? The minimum was 30,000 before, now it's 70. So the lowest paid are getting 70. What they did was just to add 40,000 to everybody. That is not minimum wage. Minimum wage, those ones got over 100%. Now, for other levels, you say, okay, you get 50%, 35%, 25%. The highest paid will get the least percentage. And that should give you, even if somebody was earning 400,000, if you do the percentage, you give us something around 100,000. When former President Buhari gave us 25,000, for instance, I got about 100,000 extra. But this one is a minimum wage. The government has duped us. They just added 40,000 to do any 30,000 and added 40 for everybody else. The percentage was not calculated.
I thought I said they
no. They duped us. Now, that's one of the issues in this, whether there will be strike or not. And it also comes to how government operates. ASU has given 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks. For the past 4, 5, 6 months, they've been given 3 weeks, they will postpone. It is now that a warning strike is to start. The government is, we don't want a strike. Let us negotiate. Governance should not be like that. Governance should just be routine. Do the right things, and you have stability. But I commend those governors. I would pray that they're able to do more in a short time, because that amount, good as it is on paper, translates to very little.
Okay, let's go to Jigawa State, where we have a tragic story, familiar in all its elements, unfortunately. At least about 167 people were killed in Jigawa State last Tuesday when a fuel tanker overturned and exploded. The accident occurred as the tanker was traveling from Kano to Yobe State, and the driver lost control near Majia town. Head of the Jigawa State Emergency Management Agency, Dr. Aaron Omairiga, says 97 people were burnt to ashes at the scene, adding that emergency services arrived at the scene several hours after the accident. Meanwhile, the Nigerian Safety Investigation Bureau has launched an investigation into the incident, which is one of the deadliest in recent times in Africa's most populous nation. Professor Aworawo.
Well,
I think it was somewhere near your village in 1998, JC.
Yes,
it
was. Those ones were scooping.
In Jigawa too, they were scooping for us.
They were scooping, and the thing just exploded, and people were just killed like that. Well, our sympathies to those who lost loved ones, and we can only say, they should take heart. Having said that, 2 other things to add. The first being the way Nigerians carry on. We are too much in a hurry. Too much in a hurry. And lawless. Even within Lagos here, many people don't stop for traffic lights. They just drive past. I was driving through Bode Thomas on Tuesday, and a truck just by my right, there was a traffic light, we were all waiting. He just veered to the right and drove off. And then vehicles were trying to turn to the other street. The vehicle just hit the one motorcycle, hit him, and then he continued. I mean, how many seconds or minutes do you need to wait at the traffic light? And then when the thing goes, then you move. So people they don't take care. They don't obey law. They are too much in a hurry. I don't know. I think National Orientation Agency needs to start singing along this line. Nigeria has one of the highest rate of accidents in the world. In fact, has the highest rate of accidents in the world. How many are we? 225 million. We have more accidents than China, that has a population of 1.3 something billion. India, that also has about 1.4, How can a country with just 25 million people have more accidents than one that... In fact, what China and India have on top of 1 billion is more than our population. And it's just because we are reckless. So our people will need to be more careful and all that. And of course, those who constantly scoop fuel, they say it's poverty, but it's poverty and greed combined. Because if you go and scoop and then there's fire like we have now, you die. Who eats the fuel you are scooping? So, well, we also heard that the emergency people came very late. We've said that over and over and over and over again. The need for the emergency people to be up and doing and respond swiftly when we have things like this. Perhaps a couple of more lives would have been saved if they had come early enough. All of these things are things we need to address to reduce all of these kinds of accidents to the barest minimum.
Mr. Ologun.
Let me also start by expressing my condolence to the families affected. I understand there was a 55-year-old who died there, leaving 2 wives and 13 children, when someone was lamenting. And I understand the Vice President has looked in the direction of the NOA to really sensitize the citizens on the risk of scooping fuel, for instance, when we have accidents like this. But like Professor Aworawo said, poverty is not supposed to be the driver of ignorance, or it be cloud sensibility sometimes. So you find citizens that are desperate and they see that as an opportunity, particularly when they consider the price of PMS. So it was like, let's go and scoop as much as we have. And talking about road safety, I also have my concerns, not just about some of the bad roads we have in the country, because there was a time even the fuel tankers drivers were going to down tools because of the state of the roads in the nation, but also the fact that the agencies are not relating effectively. I've traveled in Nigeria and I have found FRSC, this Federal Road Safety Corps, waiting at bad portions of the road to arrest some drivers. And the big question is, why don't you contact the Ministry of Works and let them know the state of this road? So we need to come to the point of having high sense of maintenance for our infrastructure. And beyond that, another thing, you talk about consequences. When a similar thing happened in Lagos around the Otedola Bridge, I read that the government was not going to spare anybody. But how many of these have we had in the country? And again, another issue that came up now is the fact that should fuel that is highly inflammable be moved freely like that? Can't we have freight rail system? But that may appear like a big and tall order for the nation. But by and large, it's a very sad experience, particularly when Nigeria was just coming out of the flooding in Borno State. And we hope that the measures that will be preventive in nature are put in place by the relevant stakeholders. Once again, condolences, not just to the families, but to the nation. Stories like this are really, heart-boggling.
Okay, very quickly, let's run through our last topic of the day, in this edition of This Day Live. Despite lawmakers confirming President William Ruto's nomination of Interior Minister Kithure Kindiki as Deputy President, Kenya's High Court has temporarily blocked the appointment. The court issued the order on Friday in response to an urgent petition challenging Kindiki's nomination, halting all proceedings until October 24, when the case will be heard. Ruto had nominated Kindiki earlier on Friday to fill the Deputy President position following the impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua. The nomination was formally delivered to Parliament by the National Assembly Speaker, setting the process in motion to fill Kenya's second highest office. The impeachment of Gachagua marks the first time a Kenyan deputy president has been removed through this process since the 2010 Kenyan Constitution. Prof, very quickly, we're running out of time.
Yeah, we mentioned it last week that perhaps the impeached vice president should have just resigned since he apparently disagreed with the president on so many things. But he chose to stay, and now he has been impeached.
Well, Mr. Ologun, very quickly, we've got to go.
He also feigned illness, and I think to make way for the intervention of the judiciary. So let's wait and see. The judiciary is to interpret the law. So let's see who prevails here, whether the executive, the judiciary or the legislative arm, because they are all stakeholders. But the fact is that for the first time in Kenya, the deputy president is being asked to step aside. So we'll monitor and see how that goes.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ologun. Thank you, Professor Aworawo. You've been watching This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati. From my entire team here in Lagos, it's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching.